Hi, this is Lee. Today I'm going to try to show you how to make a pop-up card or a fold-out card kind of like this. Have somebody who wants to make the Disney castle, so that's what I'm going to go with. Um, there's a couple ways to do it. Like one way here, I've got a circle cut or an oval cut out of the background, and then on this one here, it is just the shape of the castle cut out of the background. So I'm going to show you how you might do that. Here is an SVG file of the card with the oval cutouts, just so you can see the fold of the card's going to be right here where the oval ends, and then we've got like a cutout here so that castle can pop up. We've got a little tab here holding it to the top of the oval, and then it's connected down here at the bottom as well. So when you pop it out, it will look like this right here. Okay, so and I do want to show you, I've got two cards uploaded to my Google Drive, and you can download that and cut them if you want, just to see how it's supposed to all go together. Here's the one with the oval cut out, and here is the one that just has the castle cut out. Now when you upload these to Design Space, let's see, you're going to have to make a few changes because Design Space won't let you do, Inkscape won't let you do score lines. So if you see this comes in as some cut lines and the image, you have to ungroup it. Okay, and then if you select these lines, that's just the lines, select those and then come up here to line type and change it from cut to score. If you don't change that to score, it'll cut the card off right where those are, and that's not what we want. Now you have to select everything, so I'll just say Control A to select all, and then attach, and that attaches those score lines to the card. And then if you go to make it, you can see, well, it's hard to see on here, but the score lines are in the card where they're supposed to be. Okay, so how do you make something like this? Let me open up a new Inkscape document. The first thing we want to do is find the image that we want to insert, and I'm just going with a castle. You could pick something else, but I have found, I just searched Disney Castle Silhouette and got this, so I'm going to right click and say copy image, and then go back to my Inkscape and say Control V to paste. So there is the image of the castle. We're just going to trace this as we normally would, so path, trace bitmap. It's a simple black and white image with high contrast, so we'll just use brightness cutoff 0.45, which is the default. Update and check my preview window. It looks good, so I'll say OK. And then pull that off. Now, if I click on this and come down here and look at the info bar, it tells me that's a path. And if I click on this one, it tells me that's an image, so I know which one is which. I can press delete on the keyboard to get rid of the image because we don't need it anymore. I'm going to just hold down Shift and Control and pull on the arrow to shrink that down. Okay, now I will look at it and I see a few problems if I go back to my card. Let me zoom in here. The only place on the top that this is going to attach is right here with this flag and the spire. Go back to Inkscape, and you can see that in this castle they're not connected. We can fix that, no problem. You might be able to find a castle where they are connected. I looked at a couple, and in all cases these little things are really, really thin, and even if they're connected. So we're going to connect these, and then we're going to do some things to thicken it up so that it will stand up better as a card and cut out of cardstock. Okay, so I'm zooming in with plus on the keyboard, and I'm just going to go click on the Bezier tool, and let me see. All of my snapping tools are turned on. I'm going to turn them off. I can either click on this top one up here, which is sort of like the master control for all of these. So if I click on that, it turns everything off. If I click on that, it turns everything on. Everything that you already had selected is on. For example, if I unclick some of these and then turn this off and turn it back on, those ones that I had turned off are still off. I can go back and turn those on again. right. I like to have the snapping tools on for part of this, and usually when I'm making a design, if it's something that requires measurement and snapping, I'll toggle back and forth with the snap tools on and the snap tools off. There's a keyboard shortcut for that, which is Shift 5. So I'm going to press Shift 5 to turn those off for now, and then later on I will turn them back on. Okay, back to the Bezier tool. I have that selected, and I'm going to click up here at the top of the flag, and then drag down and click at the top of the spire, and I have drawn now a line connecting those two. That's thicker than I want it to be, so I'm going to do Control Shift F to open the fill and stroke panel. I'm going to click on stroke style and change it to pixels, and then I'm going to make that 1 pixel. Okay, so, and I'll just kind of line that up. If I was doing this card personally for me to make, I would spend a lot of time getting this, like there's a little lump here, I would probably smooth that out. But for this, I'm just going to go quickly and connect these two places that weren't connected. Again, change that to 1, and I'll just pull that out to make it a little smoother. Okay, so now those two lines are strokes. We want to change them to path. So I'm going to hold down Shift and select both of those and do path, stroke to path. Now I'm going to hold down Shift again and select the castle, and I'm just going to union it all together. Control Shift plus or path union. Now it is all one piece. Our flags are connected. I do want these to be thicker. So what I'm going to do is you could do path outset, which I've shown you before is Control close parentheses. And if I click that a few times, you can see it thickens everything up. But one thing that it does do is it gets rid of these little, it's also thickening these windows up. So I'm going to undo and go back to where I was. And to take care of that, I'm going to zoom in here using the plus key. I'm going to select the paint bucket. Now, one thing I don't think I've talked about in any of my videos is if you hold down the Shift key while you're filling with the paint bucket, it combines those together as one object. So, paint bucket, hold down the Shift key, and just click to fill those. Of course, you want to check your paint bucket settings if that's not filling properly. I'm going to zoom out a little, hold down Shift still, and now I've got all those filled. All right, you can see they're all one object. Now I will go back and do my path outset again to make this thicker. Path outset, outset, outset. Okay. Now you can see it made those windows a lot smaller. That's easy to fix since we filled these. I will hold down Shift so that I've selected those red fills that I've done and the castle, and then I'll just do path difference. Now we have a thicker castle outline, and the windows and little openings are not too small, so they still show up. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start building the card. Let me go back to this one right here. Now you can see if I fold it up flat, the castle is going to be down on this bottom part of the card, the base of the castle, and the top part of the castle is going to be on this fold of the card. And then I will go back to this one, and you can see here's the fold of the card right here. I'll pull down a guide. There's the fold of the card, and the castle extends that much down beyond it. And then you're going to want to make sure that this little tab you put in here is the same distance, because when you fold the card up, they're both going to be going the same distance. So I'll show you how to do that. To start building the card, I'm going to do 2 separate rectangles, and then later I'll union them together. So I'm just going to draw a rectangle. I'm not worried about size at all at this point. I'm going to change the color and press End on the keyboard to send it to the back. Let me zoom in a little, pressing plus on the keyboard, and I will move that down to where I want the fold of the card to be. Maybe right there. Now, I'm going to turn the snapping tools back on, Shift 5, or I can just come up here and click this. I want all of my snapping tools on. And I want to select the castle, and then click up here on the ruler and pull down a guide to the bottom corner of the castle. Now I want to pull down a guide to the bottom corner of my rectangle. So now I'm going to make a little measuring tool. I'm just going to click the rectangle tool, and with my snapping tools on, I'm going to draw a rectangle so that it's exactly the same height, and the snapping tools help you get it. Alright, so now we want our card, we need to have enough card on the top of this to cover that. So I'm going to click back on the rectangle and pull that up a little bit higher. This is going to eventually be the tab that we're going to use to fold. Right now it's just a little measuring tool. Okay. Now I'm going to click that and duplicate, Control D, and I'm going to move that one down with the snapping tools on and snap it directly to the bottom of that. And I'm going to press End on the keyboard to send it to the back. I can change this to a little bit of a different color just to remind me that those two are two separate things. Eventually I'm going to union these together, so what I want to do right now is click this one. I'm going to hold down Alt and click the down arrow. Holding down Alt makes the increment of the down arrow, like if I click the down arrow without holding it, it moves it quite a bit. You can see I'm clicking down and clicking up. If I hold down the Shift key and click down, it moves it a lot. If I hold down the Alt key and click down, it moves it just a tiny amount. And then I'm going to do the same for this rectangle here. I'm going to hold down Alt and click the up arrow. That just gives those a little bit of an overlap so that when I do union those together, there won't be any gap there. Sometimes there's a gap. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an oval in behind this. I'm just going to click on my circle tool and I'm going to draw an oval, and I'm not too worried about size right now. I'm going to click page down until I get that behind the castle. Oops, I just drew another oval. Click back on the selection tool, grab the oval and bring it up here. I'm going to make it a little skinnier, but you see how my snapping is messing things up. So now I'm going to turn snapping off, Shift 5, or press that right there. And now I'm not snapping anymore, and it makes it a lot easier to control. Okay, I'm going to line up. I'm going to select both of my rectangles and the oval, and now I'm going to open the alignment tools, which is Shift Control A, and that opens the align tools. I'm just going to press this one right here, which aligns things to the center. I'm not going to align the castle to the center because actually I am. I'm going to click that and I'm going to align all of those to the center, so now everything is exactly centered. Okay, now I want to make sure the top of my oval matches about the top of that little measuring device I put in. Alright, getting close. Now what I want to do is I want to take that oval and subtract it from that rectangle back there. So I'll select both of those and do Control Shift minus or path difference. Alright, now that oval is cut out of the card. Okay, now what I want to do, let me go back to my other Inkscape. I have to cut out a little bit of the castle underneath here so that it will fold up out of the card. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to duplicate this castle, Control D, then I'm going to give it a stroke outline. I'm going to make it green. I hold down Shift and press that to give that a stroke outline. If I zoom in, that's actually pretty thick, so I'm going to go back to the fill and stroke and change that stroke to 1 pixel. And now you can see I've got 2 copies of that castle. Control Z to move that back. I'm just going to change the stroke to a path. Path, stroke to path. Okay, now if I pull that out, you see it's just an outline. I'm going to take that outline and subtract it from this bottom rectangle, Control Shift minus. Okay, now if I pull that out, you can see that it is cut out of there. I'm also going to duplicate the castle again because we don't need these parts here. So I'm going to duplicate the castle again, Control D. I'm going to outset it just a tiny bit and then subtract that from this bottom rectangle also. Now if I pull that out of the way, you can see that those are cut out. I will zoom in. We don't need these little sliver pieces right here, so I'll double click on that and then click and drag to select those nodes, and just delete them. Okay, now we've got the top half of our card the way we want. We've got the bottom half of our card the way we want. Now we just have to attach the castle to the rest of it and fix this tab here. We know that that is about the right distance, so I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to squish that rectangle up that way, pull it down this way, and then pull it up here so that it overlaps both the castle and the oval that we've made. I'm now going to take everything, Control A, and union it together, Control Shift plus. Okay? Now, if I was to cut it like this, it would cut, let me go back to this guy, it would cut the bottom of the castle completely out. So it wouldn't be attached here at this point. Fixing that's pretty easy. I'm just going to go in and I'm going to make a rectangle and just cover the very bottom of the castle there. Now I'm going to take that rectangle and union it to the whole card. Control Shift plus to union. Now you can see we have got the little places where it still attaches. If I go back to here, you can see, let me zoom in, it's going to attach right there and it's going to have a little cutout. The last thing we need to do is put in a score line, a couple of score lines. We want to score the card right here where it is going to fold. So let me zoom in. And in this case, we will just draw lines, and then when you bring it into design space, you will change those lines to a score. With the snapping tools on, because I've got my guidelines here, I can click on the Bezier tool. It wants to drop a point there, click, and there, double click. Now we've got a line. We don't want it to score across the castle because that part's not going to fold. Then again over here, click and double click. Now we've got our two score lines where the card is going to fold. We're going to put some score lines in up here. You can get fancy and make these bend if you want. I'm just going to leave them straight. If I hold down Control while I am dragging a Bezier line, it makes it either vertical or horizontal. Okay, so there's those two score lines. Now we need one more set of score lines right across the bottom of the castle, right in these little folds. So I'm just going to do the same thing. I'll zoom in a little, and I'm just going to put a score line here, whoops, to here, here, to here, my snapping is making it a little, there we go. And then one final one here and here. Now what I want to do is I want to select all of those purple lines that I've just made, and I want to make them one thing so that I don't have to worry about them getting unaligned. Now you know when you're making objects one thing, you do path union. If you've just got strokes that you want to make one object, you will use combine, and that is one difference with combine, between combine and union. So to do this, just to select those, I'm going to click on that one. I'm going to right click and say select same stroke color. Now all of those are selected. I'm just going to do path combine. Path combine. Now they are all one thing, but they will import into design space as just a cut line. And that's where when you go into design space, you will take those and you will first convert them to a score, and then you will attach them to the card. Okay, I think that that's about it. One thing you might have to adjust, and there's quite a few measurements getting these to work. When this folds up, this is going to be longer than the top of the card. It's going to kind of jut out of the top a little. So you might want to take, add a rectangle into this to make the top of this longer. So what I might do for that with my snapping tools on, instead of having to redraw the whole thing, I might just draw a little rectangle like this, just to make that card taller. And again, hold down the Alt key and click the down arrow. Okay. Now, because we made the top of the card longer, we want to make the bottom of the card longer too. So Control D to duplicate it, snap it down here, and then hold down Alt and the up arrow to nudge it up one tiny bit. And now we can just take those and Control Shift plus to union those to the card. And that just made our card a little bit taller so that when this folds up, it's not going to jut out beyond the card. Now, while you're here, if you wanted to make an outer card for this, you could design the outer card for that too. Like if you wanted to glue this to, say, a white card to go on the outside, you could design that here in Design Space as well and go ahead and import that, design it in Inkscape and to go ahead and import it into Design Space while you're at it. You'll just want to design another rectangle just with a little bit of overlap. So, okay, hopefully that explains how to do that. There's a lot of steps in that. But it should work with any sort of shape you. Their Design Space has one that's a baby bear, something like Papa Bear or something. It's got two little bears, and you pretty much design that the same way. You would design the card and then have your object move down below the fold, and then you just have to attach it in a couple of places and put in the score lines. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.